It's no secret that the industry needs to see a massive shift in order to quell developer anxiety over job stability, where there's often no safety net to support laid-off workers. Game developer Katie Chironis details the times she lived in constant fear of losing her job, which is not unreasonable given the industry's track record of laying off its workers. As an added bonus, Chironis and her husband are both developers, adding an extra layer of pressure should one of them lose their jobs. We have our dream jobs, in theory, she writes, but neither one of us has ever worked for a company longer than 3 years. Despite our best efforts, how do you have a stable life in an industry which does not seem to offer one? To Chironis, only being able to plan the year ahead, as opposed to many years, because of work uncertainty was normal. It goes without saying that it should not be anybody's normal. She landed her first job in the industry at Microsoft Game Studios in 2013. We were part of a group of new grad employees who had been hired to bring fresh talent to departments throughout X, with the goal that many of us would become lifetime employees. Chironis explains, we'd all worked hard. This sort of job had always been the dream, and here we were. Things were fantastic for a few months. It did not last. Whispers of reorganization began to spread around the office, and Chironis was not sure what it meant, but knew enough to be scared. Management called our entire group of new grads into a conference room to let us know we would be let go at the end of our first year. She writes, Microsoft had funded this hiring program, but then, somewhere in all those calculations and rate assessments of profit and loss in the following months, it had been scrapped. Chrionis explains how she and her peers had been promised careers, growth, and mentorship under Microsoft. Most of the original group of Dash had worked with and not have been involved in games anymore. That sort of experience sticks with you. It was my first time being laid off in the games industry, and it would not be the last. Be sure to check out the entire piece over at Polygon, where Chrionis goes into more detail about her previous layoffs. It's important, and well worth the read. Payday toolmaker Starbreeze has applied for an extended reconstruction period as it looks to find stability after filing for administration. The Stockholm District Court initially approved the company's reconstruction up until March 3,
2019.
but Starbreeze is now asking for another 3 months to get its house in order. It's been a rough couple of months for Starbreeze, with chief exec Andersson leaving the company back in December after the underwhelming launch of Overkill's The Walking Dead lift item. Die financial straits. The developer-publisher was then raided by Swedish authorities on suspicion of insider trading, resulting in the arrest of one unnamed person. Moving forward, Starbreeze has pledged to carry out the restructuring plan it laid out back in December, and says it will continue to focus on its core business of internal development and publishing. It's also hoping to work with external parties to ensure that non-core operations can be developed in a positive way. Unity has announced its first annual Unity for Humanity contest, an initiative with a focus on games that inspire meaningful change. One developer will be awarded $25,000 in funding to help bring their project to fruition. This is a great opportunity for developers who feel as though their work could make an impact on others, and receive the added benefit of funding and mentorship as well. As explained in a blog post, eligible projects are those that are currently in development, but not yet completed. Projects must also demonstrate plans for distribution and be willing to submit all the business to consumers at the event. In addition, a prototype art video demoing the project must be provided, along with a detailed picture treatment outlining the project details. It's worth noting that submitted projects must utilize Unity as the only 3D game engine software used during production. Interested developers can head here for the full list of contest terms and conditions. If they choose to submit their work, this interview is part of our Road to Layoff series. You can find the rest by clicking here. The Haunted Island, a frog detective game. The Haunted Island, which has been nominated for Best Student Game in 2019, follows a nice amphibian detective Chrionis land of spooky, mysterious, and cheerful animal friends. Gamasutra spoke with Grace Bruxner, developer of The Haunted Island, to learn about what thoughts go into creating a welcoming community for players to visit with the game, the silliness that came with trying to make Noire a little less serious, and the power behind a smile. I am Grace Bruxner and I am the creative lead on The Haunted Island, a frog detective game. I made the majority of the game, including art, narrative, and design, with programming by Thomas Bowker, and a wonderful soundtrack by Dan Golding. I have made a few games before. The best known are probably The Fish Market and Alien Casino, which were both 3D museum diorama style games. Alien Casino specifically brought me into a more public eye, and was exhibited at a bunch of festivals and exhibitions worldwide, which was very cool for a tiny act like me. I studied for the past 3 years, doing game design at RMIT, and made The Haunted Island during my final year capstone project, graduating shortly after. Also, at the start of my second year, I got a job at the Melbourne-based games company Geeks, and I have been there for almost 2 years now. It started with wanting to make a game about a frog detective, because I thought it deeply funny to have a game that was like Noir, but way less serious, with the same style of music and story, but nothing bad ever really happening. I told my partner Tom about this idea in mid-2017, and it kinda stuck around for a while. I made a plan for a game set in a beach town, where something had been stolen and there would be multiple endings, depending on who you thought was the culprit. That scope was way too big, and I wanted to scale it down for a style and mood test, and that's where The Haunted Island began. Originally, I had scoped it down so much that it had almost no interaction at all besides talking. But once I started making the game, I realized it was fun to make it a weirdly elaborate game with multiple cutscenes. I use Unity and Maya for all my 3D games. For this game, I started out by making the island, populating it with trees, rocks, grass, and water, as well as a first-person camera controller. This was to get a sense of the scale. Then I used Doodle Studio 95, which is a plugin for Unity by Fernando Ramallo, and made tiny animated sketches of the characters, so I could decide on the design and placements before I started modeling them. A lot of my design for this game came from wanting to contrast non-camera angles, music, and mood with a very non-threatening, welcoming environment and cast of characters. I think a lot of that has to do with the gentle color scheme, and the fact that everyone is smiling all the time. My 3D games since day one have had smiling faces, because I think it's funny. My first ever 3D model was of a fish with a smiling face and blinking eyes, and I thought it was the funniest thing ever, and I have kinda stuck with that aesthetic ever since, even having spent 3 years getting better at 3D. The most important thing for me about making a community within a game is to make sure the characters have a purpose while being in a space. This does not necessarily mean that they have to be contributing to the space, but that they are around for a reason. For example, the majority of the scientists have no idea what their job is or what they are supposed to be doing. But their purpose is to stand there and look busy, and they will tell you all about it. Even the sad or anxious characters have a reason to occupy their space. Mo has a great vantage point to look at Mystery Monkey. In line, through the trees, Cole refuses to get out of the water because of the ghost, and Fresh Axe has found a relaxing, private spot to have a rest, because I had not written dialogue before in a game.